Appreciate it. My name is Andrew Dick. I am an employee at MyFM here in Pembroke. We are super excited to be hosting this debate, and thank you especially to all of you for showing up tonight. Thank you to the candidates for showing up tonight. So let me start off by introducing our candidates who are going to be debating and telling you a little bit about themselves tonight. So in seat number 1, we have an independent Seth Malini. In seat number 2, we have Cindy Mills from the Liberal Party. In seat number 3, we have Randy Brand of the United Party. In seat number 4, we have Eileen Jones-White of the NDP Party. And in seat number 5, we have Stefan Cleach, also an independent. So, I'm just going to go over a few little kind of ground rules for the audience. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few important guidelines to ensure a respectful, engaging atmosphere for both our candidates and the audience. First, please take a moment to silence your phones. We kindly ask that you refrain from using your devices throughout the debate. Distractions can disrupt the flow of discussion and detract from the experience for everyone involved. Let's focus on the debate, leaving side conversations and electronic distractions aside for the night. As our candidates share their views, we request that you remain silent and avoid shouting, gesturing, or making any noises. While you may have differing opinions, it is crucial to maintain a respectful environment for all speakers and participants. Disruptive behavior such as booming or making derogatory comments is not acceptable. We invite you to show your enthusiasm through applause and cheers only at 2 specific moments: when the candidates take the stage at the beginning and after the delivering of their closing comments. So we already did the one, and takes away from the debate. And it also gives and maximizes the candidates' speaking opportunities to keep our program on schedule. Lastly, please note that the candidates' positions on the stage were determined through a random draw prior to the event, and in order in which they will answer questions was also established by lottery. Also, we will be, after we do the debate portion and go to Q&A and final thoughts, we will be rolling a dice to see who starts, so it's totally random. And with that, let's just basically quickly go through the format for tonight, and then we'll begin. So, part 1 is going to be the debate format. So, we're going to ask each candidate 1 question. We have 5 questions. They're going to get 1 minute to respond. I know it's not a lot of time, however, we don't want to be here till midnight either. So, after they all get a chance to respond, then we're going to have 3 to 5 minutes of debating, and then we'll carry on. And we have 5 questions in the debate portion. Then we're going to move on to just Q&A, where I have 3 questions. I'm going to ask them, and they're all going to get 2 minutes to answer those, and there's no debating on that. And then we're going to finish off. There was kind of some confusions. I had a typo, and that's on me through the emails. Some thought it was a minute, some thought it was 2 minutes, and another candidate thought it was 3. So final thoughts, we're going to kind of just let them have 3 minutes max, and we're going to let them do what they need to do. And with that, we will begin the debate. And candidates, some of the questions are long, so if you want me to repeat the question, I will repeat it. So for example, we're going to start here, and by the time it gets down to you, young man, you might have forgot, because some of them are pretty long, and I don't have a problem repeating them. All right, are we ready, candidates? All right. So the first question is on immigration. Immigration has been a hot button issue in this campaign, and the federal government announced earlier this year that it was significantly pulling back on its inflation numbers. At the same time, businesses continue to experience problems hiring as baby boomers exit the workplace and we are seeing growing shortages in professional and skilled trades, including doctors, nurses, veterinarians, tradespeople, and many more necessary job categories. If we aren't seeing any homegrown applicants, and we aren't keen on immigrants, what is your plan to fill these most necessary vacancies in our businesses, trades, and professions? Seth Molina, you will begin. You have 1 minute beginning now.
Right on. Okay, well, thank you so much, Andrew. It's exciting to be here. A little nervous. I get to start first, right? We have all this experience. I'm the one starting, but I think when it comes to immigration, my thoughts, we do need immigration, right? We have a baby boom population. The importance, though, is really picking the degrees, picking the jobs that we need to fill. That includes, that does not include 1-year college degrees at Algonquin College. That many temporary workers are going through. I work fast food. I'm very fortunate to have a job. And a lot of my coworkers, it's these 1-year hospitality and tourism degrees, which is fine, but I do think that when it comes to temporary foreign workers, it must be at least 2 years or longer.
Thank you very much, Seth. Cindy Mills from the Liberal Party. Your time starts now.
First, I want to thank you so much for hosting us here tonight. I really am looking forward to engaging in this debate. I believe respectful dialogue is a powerful way to challenge ideas, deepen understanding, and important issues. Locally, let's remember that we'll know the first Polish-Canadian Canada is there because of immigration. And let's not forget we have the best pierogies. Immigration is the foundation to Canada's fabric and our proud history. You Canadians have fueled our economy in the past and have the potential to support our economic growth, to address our demographic shifts, and to help withstand economic shocks now and into the future. But we can only achieve these goals if it's done in the right way and at the right pace. We have a responsibility to ensure those who immigrate to Canada have the social services they need. Hence, we also need to be mindful of not adding new pressures on our housing and social services and not allowing our over-reliance on foreign labor that drives down wages.
Thank you so much. Randy, your time starts now.
First of all, you hear me repeat this over and over this evening about putting Canadians first. Certainly, I'm very tenacious about looking at data, and I do understand the importance of immigration. However, what we've seen in this government is irresponsible immigration. So one of the things I would definitely say is that we have to make sure that we have responsible numbers in immigration, and we have the infrastructure to satisfactorily accept it. We've noticed right now that we're in a tumultuous state for the reason that we do not have the infrastructure. So we need to do also an assessment of the Canadian needs, and that's where I think the data is critical. An assessment of the needs to be done. And immigration has to be tailored to meet those specific needs. And we need to be tenacious about those who are coming in terms of security standards. And one of the things that we want to make sure in immigration is that they align with the Canadian values. And
thank you so much. Eileen from the NDP Party, your time starts now.
Great. Thanks very much for having us all here this evening. Canada's strength comes from the people who call it home. From Indigenous people who have lived here for millennia to the generations of settlers who have built their lives here. We need immigrants in Canada. My parents are immigrants. I'm married to an immigrant. We continue to need immigration to bolster the workforce. But it is true that we're facing infrastructure problems, which are a result of decades of conservative and government neglect. We, the NDP, plan on continuing to bring immigrants to Canada to help with the workforce issues and to build housing stock. And I know that there is a labor shortage, But this will come out later when we talk about our green transitions and transitioning workers. Another area that we need to work with the accrediting boards of different sectors to speed up the process of granting Canadian equivalencies.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Stefan. Sorry, Stefan. Is it Stefan?
I go by Stefan, but I'm not.
Stefan. Okay, thank you. So, Stefan, your time begins now.
In my view, immigration is undeniably a net economic positive. When you have a larger national population, you have greater economies of scale and greater productivity accordingly. What's more ambiguous in my mind is whether immigration is a proper solution to skills shortages, especially temporary foreign workers who explicitly have fewer rights than most Canadian workers. I think the solution to skills shortages in business employment has to come at some level from businesses being prepared to spend the money for in-house training as opposed to relying on the supply of already trained and already educated labor from elsewhere.
Thank you so much. So thank you to all of you for allowing me just to cut you off at the 1 minute. We did have a chat about that back, and I do appreciate that. We will now open the debate portion of it, and we're going to allow 3 to 5 minutes on the topic. And if anybody would like to start, just please, Eileen, the floor is yours.
I'd like to talk about the marriage of skills needed, and in immigration. Because while we do have skill shortages, we also have many foreign trained professionals here in Canada who are unable to work in their field to date. And that's where I was talking about working with the accreditation boards. So we're very short in doctors. We need to work with the federal government, the provincial and territorial governments, and we need to work with the colleges of physicians and surgeons who work on accreditations. As an educator of many years, I know the Ontario College of Education has worked on speeding up the process for foreign trained educators to be able to work in the province. And if we work together cooperatively with these bodies, we can get the people who are here and who get here on the basis of the credentials that they have, but then we don't let them work in their field. We can get them up and working to improve shortages in areas that we have.
Okay.
I truly think, too, one of the critical things, and we've seen it now, I mentioned about how we are in this crazy, tumultuous situation with mass immigration, where it certainly wasn't thought out in terms of infrastructure. And I know that I would certainly make sure that we have a limit on permanent residents. And I know the United Party is looking at 50 to 100,000 permanent residents. But I agree that we have to make sure that the infrastructure and the needs assessment is done to make sure that immigrants that do come here are coming here with jobs and the needed skills to be able to fill those. But I go back and I say one of the things I'm still uncertain, and I feel it's not totally 100% solidified. Again, I don't trust all the data, but I listen to Canadians. I've moved all around the riding, and I hear all kinds of Canadians that are looking for jobs and looking for are looking for ways. And I think we need to put Canadians first.
So
we're going to give the floor to Cindy. Go ahead, Cindy.
During the campaign, I had the opportunity to meet with business owners, local, and as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, I can tell you we do have a labor shortage in this area. What happens is our young people tend to go off to school and university and move away, and we do not have the labor to work in our restaurants or in the hospitality industry, and there's a shortage, or in the gas stations. We need these workers for these amenities because we don't have them. And I think there's different programs I was introduced to, like one in North Bay, where you bring in immigrants, or they come in and they work, and eventually work towards their permanent status. And I think that's something that we need to look at. I don't think, that's all I'm going to say.
Eileen?
I would just like to carry on from what Cindy was saying, because it very much is true that we have a shortage of skills. And you So, sorry, I do have 2 quick points I'll try to correct, right? As Cindy said, we are a rural area. I was talking to small business owners recently who are trying to get in professionals from overseas. But to go back to the accreditation process, we can't guarantee that even if working through immigration, we can get them to work in their field. And as Cindy pointed, we're in a rural area. We actually need to attract people to our area. And that is done through targeted immigration, but it is also done through education. We need to work on skills and on skills and building people in the trades and building people in the hospitality and giving education to our youth.
And I've heard that I'm in education. I was in it for 32 years, and I'm very aware that we always have skill shortages. But we have the people here. And what's happening is, why aren't we incentivizing? Why aren't we creating incentives right here in town for our youth? What we need to do is start promoting that in high school. Skills, for example, for the longest time, post-secondary has been pushed. And indeed, most of us went that road thinking that that was the only route to make any money. Well, we realize that trades right now here in town are absolutely lucrative. But why is it that we're not at the school level and the college level? Why aren't we providing incentives to have our own kids get involved with those programs so that they can be the next generation here?
Hey, Seth, you're leading up. Did you want us, because we have 30, Cindy, you'll get the last 30 seconds on this.
And that's why the county government is introducing a $8,000 credit for all skilled labor in the trades.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for a very helpful debate there. Okay, we're going to move on to question 2. And Cindy from the Liberal Party will answer it first. Then we'll go 3, 4, 5, and back to 1. Okay? The Liberal government has fought and won 3 consecutive elections on the issue of the carbon tax. But now the Liberal Party, under Mark Carney, is retreating from that position. And the Conservative Party has long been opposed to it. If a carbon tax is not the answer to climate change, what is? Cindy, your time starts now.
First, I just want to say the retail carbon tax is gone, it's canceled, there's nothing to debate there. But what does remain is the industrial carbon fee. The reason that we have this built into our trade is for around the world, the countries that import, it's an import tax on a policy. And we understand our party, that climate change is real, and everyone here, I'm sure can remember the smoke in 2023. As vice president of our local soccer club, we had to cancel practices and postpone games as the air quality was not conducive for children to play. This is not the future I want for my children or my children's future. We do have a climate change, we take it seriously, and in 2015 we implemented significant measures to combat it. Climate change, the climate is a priority from our party as we recently announced green incentives and industrial decarbonization. We introduced a balanced strategy.
Thank you so much.
This is quite simple. The answer to climate change is common sense. We've lost a lot of that in the longest time, and as an organic farm, I can tell you specifically, the kinds of things, I know that I haven't had chemicals in my land for 15 years. There are things that can certainly be done, but at the end of the day, we have to remember that our country is based on incredible resources, and this net zero thing is absolutely, it's ludicrous for the simple fact that Canada is responsible for less than 1% of the pollution. We have countries like India and China that are creating companies basically coal-driven on a weekly basis. And why aren't we focusing on that? Why are we focusing on a net zero for Canada? Our economic success is built on resources, and we should be using them. And Daniel Smith, the Premier of Alberta, has shown very quickly and offered very, very good options to China and to India to clean up their act.
Thank you, Aaron. Eileen, your time starts now.
Well, I think first, we need an MP who does not deny the reality of climate change. After 2 record floods of the century in Algonquin for Pembroke, forest fires of last summer, the evidence is incontrovertible. And to continue to deny climate change is to risk our health, our economy, and our way of life. With specific to carbon pricing, the carbon pricing for retailers for personal carbon tax is gone. Carbon pricing, though, according to the Canadian, and it is still in there for industrial carbon pricing because the big polluters need to pay. And according to the Canadian Climate Institute, retaining the carbon pricing for industries is on track to reduce carbon by 20 to 48% in Canada by 2030 in only 5 years. The carbon pricing is the largest and most successful plan in reducing carbon emission.
Thank you.
We need to keep
Thank you, Aaron. I forget already. Stefan. Second. I apologize. All right. You have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
The debate in favor of a carbon tax, especially a carbon tax paired with consumer rebates, can and should be won. What the Liberals fail to do is they fail to consistently stand by and explain the economics of carbon pricing. The Trudeau Liberals got into the habit of scolding their critics while leaving it to a dozen economists on Twitter to explain how the tax works, why it's advocated by economists, what's the systematic evidence for it. But one thing that I would support that the Liberals did not, that they should have listened to economists on, is having a national carbon price that applies consistently across all provinces and that has as few exemptions as possible. We need a government that can stand firm and show some spine in advocating against the carbon price, even when they have an opponent who's very determined to spread misinformation about it.
Thank you. Seth, your minute begins now.
Yeah, I would agree with Stefan on this point of when you come up with the carbon pricing and your whole point of it is, well, look, you're going to get your money back. People constantly need that reminder, that assurance, and I think a lot of people were not impressed, didn't take that rebate, gratefully, because there was a lot of misunderstanding, and it almost seemed a little, hidden from the Liberals, right? But I want to talk specifically about our green spaces here in Valley, because I know climate change is a big thing, and especially carbon tax, a lot of the airspace, so to speak. But we need to protect our green spaces in the valley.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 to 5 minute debate. The last debate, I was good conversation. I got the full 5 minutes, so let's begin this one. Eileen, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. The conversation around carbon pricing is like, in general, we're all in agreement that we need to keep carbon pricing for at least for the big polluters. So when we're talking about big pollution, we need to think about the fact that there's a lot more to climate crisis than just carbon pricing. The Conservatives don't have a climate action plan, and the Liberals are planning on building a pipeline across Canada. Canada has the highest rate of subsidization for oil and gas in the G7. We need to work on an action plan that transitions us from a dependence on oil and gas to newer and cleaner energies. And we need to work on a plan that transitions us in a way that is just to workers and keeps workers in a job and keeps them working. Let's take a look. So as NDP, what we are proposing is instead of a pipeline, that's not an east-west north transmission line. We have a lot of the infrastructures already there. Look at what Wab Canoe is doing already in Manitoba, where he, at the end of the contract in Minnesota, he is no longer selling electricity to Minnesota. He is now selling it to the territories. And this is part of the cooperation that we need, that's not only for climate crisis, but overcoming Trumpist tariffs and making Canada stronger and making our climate better. We need to realize that we are in a paradigm shift, and these old technologies that just are well, as East Coast launched ships 7 years ago, clean oil and gas is a fairy tale. We need to transition, and we need to support workers as we do that.
I fail to understand why we need to transition when our country puts out less than 1% of the world's population. As Daniel Smith said, and I go back to what I said initially, we have countries that are responsible for tons and tons of pollution and astronomical levels. And she's offered some cleaner resources to be able to deal with that. Why aren't we using those resources to help other countries who are truly responsible for this?
So when we talk about a transmission line, we are talking about resources that are currently there. We're talking about hydro. We're talking about nuclear. We're talking about clean resources that are already in existence, and it's about using them for an east-west-north transmission, as opposed to now most of our provinces are selling to the United States.
Randy,
Yeah.
I'm going to let Stefan come in because we only do about 5 minutes. Stefan, you come in, and then we're going to let Randy. Randy wants to. So Stefan, go ahead.
There's a stereotype, a popular stereotype of the consumer as a small little guy who's just trying to get by in life, and as the producer, as this dominant, abusive actor in the economy and marketplace, and that the producer is the one who should shoulder the burden of climate change action. In reality, consumers and producers are in a yin and yang relationship to each other. They are fundamentally two sides of the same coin. I'm not convinced that it's possible to impose a climate burden on producers and not have it passed on to consumers. But if it is, and you attempt to leave the burden just on producers, then you're throwing away, you're keeping off the table action on a huge component of what constitutes the sum of carbon emissions.
And the difficulty is that it's very penalizing, especially for farmers who are feeding the country. It's becoming more difficult every day, more expensive to be able to feed the country. Such irony and hypocrisy. We need to be helping our farmers. And they are, and the other thing that I've noticed is that in terms of good food, more and more expensive to get non-GMO food out. Why is that? Why is it that the good things are getting much more difficult? And it's all based around this ideology or philosophy that we need to get net zero.
It's around an ideology of capitalism. Like, you are 100%. Our local producers need to have better access to our market. 100% correct. But it's right now, most supermarkets will go to the biggest chain, which will guarantee them, they say, a constant source of food. Our local farmers should be better supported. Our local farmers should be better supported locally and should be supported.
And we need to stop penalizing them.
Thank you guys. We're going to let Cindy come in because she's been very patient here. Very healthy debate. Very healthy debate going on. Cindy, we're going to let you wrap this up with 35 seconds.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Okay, 2 points. I had the opportunity to visit No Frills in Renfrew, and they have a program where they do sell local products in their store, vegetables and fruit that is accessible here. Number 2, it is our responsibility because, as Barack Obama said, there is no planet B. We have seen a rise, climate change has done. It might not be our responsibility or our pollution that's causing fires, but it's coming from somewhere and it's costing us.
We don't have a choice but to be responsible, and I see that with farmers already, Cindy. I see most of them realize that in order to, the risk that's involved in planting that crop, getting it off the field, is costing them a lot already.
Right.
So they're
So
being
you see our responsibility with big oil and gas?
All right, guys. Thank you so much on that. Thank you very much. Great debate. Very well done. All right. We're going to move on to question number 3. And Randy will begin answering this one first, and then we'll move forward, okay? So, question number 3. Years and years, this riding has been informed that Highway 17 is going to be twinned from Arnprior to Brentford. However, nothing has been done. With the exception of the overpass at Calabogie turnoff. If elected, what is your plan to advocate for the construction of the twinning of Highway 17? Randy, you're 1 minute case now.
I'll be really quite honest with you. I have really, I feel like I'm not totally prepared to answer that question. And why I say that is I know that it was indeed a priority at one point. And we understand the dangers of a single lane highway. We've seen the repercussions of that. But when I look at my community and I see that we have 130% increase in domestic violence, and I know these things come from different coffers and different funds, but I'm just wondering, and this is where I would do a needs assessment, this is where I would need to talk to members of the community, this is truly a priority. If it is, then it's something that we need to fight for, we need to find programs and monies to be able to do so. My intuition, my coming from this area, being raised in this area, and recognizing that we have bigger problems, I'm sensing that I would put my priorities elsewhere, if not necessarily the priority.
Thank you, Randy. Eileen, you're 1 minute case now.
So the highway is actually a provincial jurisdiction, right? But there are rules that the federal government can play in this. From things like reducing the amount of traffic on the highway. So I mean, Harper pulled up railways, and that already has put a lot more trust on the highway than ever before. You know, the NDP is like, we are committed to creating infrastructure in things like ports, rails, highways. I mean, ports still would help somewhat in this area to remove traffic from the highways. So part of it is getting
Provincial entity, he did commit to working on Highway 17. However, as we've seen, there is little progress. Well, I will advocate for the twinning of that highway because, as Seth mentioned, when you're driving and there's a load move of any side of any kind for the military, you're on that road.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
That was I was not expecting that variation of answers. It surprised me, actually, and I enjoyed your conversation. I actually am looking forward to a debate here. Hopefully we'll have one.
I don't think there's a debate. If there's certainly a need, then that has to come forward, and we have to find ways of getting it done.
I think, as Andy said, we're all in agreement that we need to improve the safety standard of Highway 17. And that is a provincial jurisdiction, and that, as Cindy said, like we would all advocate for it. As I didn't get into my time, like maybe the federal government can play a role in offering bridge financing if that's part of the Ontario government's problem. But I mean, it's about consulting with people and finding out what is, different people meaning like different levels of government and what is the holdup. But I'd also like to point out that like what I was mentioning about diverting traffic also ties back to the topic before. Like it improves safety on the highways, but it also ties back to that idea of climate change. Oh, it is also carbon too, because we're talking about carbon emissions from vehicles. So there are ways that are better for so many different reasons.
Cindy, go ahead.
Okay, so this is where I want to point out that as the trade barriers come down through the provinces, we will need better infrastructure on our roads, and Mark Carney is the best person for forming these type of partnerships to make this happen as we build one strong economy for Canada.
But I was under the impression that the Liberals were really stopping the building of roads. I thought that was one of their concerns.
Go ahead, Cindy.
No, I don't think so. I think we're about building one economy strong, and that is getting our
That
assets.
has nothing to do with building roads. Or if it does happen in this case, I'm referring specifically to roads. Your government, for some reason, wants to stop building roads.
I think we read that differently, Randy.
Well, we didn't read it. Period.
All right, guys. All right. Stefan, go ahead.
Just picking up on that point, I think just for clarification, I think what Randy was talking about. I think what he was talking about is there was actually a point in time where Stephen Guilbeault mused about roads not being all that crucial, or like something that Canada wants to have a little less of. And I noticed the commentary. It was a little strange because the Liberals are in fact invested in roads through the promotion of electric vehicles. I'm not saying saying that's a big deal. Just something. Just saying that.
Steph, that was exactly what I was referring to. Thank you.
Okay, everybody seems happy. I just know if you ever drive around Pembroke or Renfrew, roads are super important.
Yeah, I just take it very personally when being an English teacher, they tell me I've read it, or I read it incorrectly.
It's all good.
Thank you, Steph.
Okay, everyone, we're going to move on to question number 4. This is a long question, however, you're going to get the gist of it, and you're all going to understand it. So here we go. Every party is pushing for the building of more homes, and that is great. Provincial premiers are pushing hard as well. The reality is, however, that none of the targets are being met. Developers complain of lack of tradespeople. Right here in the city of Pembroke, there are no fewer than 4 major subdivisions that are ready to go and have the backing, support, and encouragement of the local council. This is the same across Ontario. But houses are simply not being built. Throwing out numbers and goals is easy, but how will you actually get shovels in the ground and housing units finished for occupancy? Eileen, you will be starting this one, and I will give you, everybody's taking notes, so we'll just kind of, all right, Eileen, we're going to start your 1 minute now.
That's a very valid point, right? And it comes up again and again, and it's the lack of people available in the trades is not an overnight solution. However, there are things that we can do, and if I tie that back to the idea of the just transition, as we transition people to newer energies, to newer other ways of making a living, we will create some workers there. It's an educational issue, and it ties back into the into the immigration issue of bringing in skilled workers. But it's also very important that we realize just how important the housing is, and that both the Liberals and the Conservatives want to increase. The Conservatives, who's not here, wants housing to be done on private developers. And we all know that if housing is done by private developers, it's for profit, and that's not affordable housing.
Thank you. Thank you. Stefan, your 1 minute starts now.
Well, I'm not convinced that the federal government alone can make shovels in the ground happen. As I understand it, the primary, some of the biggest hurdles to speeding up the building of housing in Canada and in Ontario is regulatory obstacles. More specifically, development charges and zoning regulations. I know that the Liberals and the Conservatives, they're proposing their own GST cuts to apparently stimulate, cut costs on development. I'm open-minded to that, but I'm uncertain that that would be a solution. But definitely, as a matter of policy, it needs to be a focus to build more three-bedroom houses.
Thank you. Zach, your 1 minute starts now.
Yeah. So first, real quick, if I were to be elected as your member of Parliament, one of the things that I would fight for is overtime tax relief. I think it's ridiculous that when we have jobs to do and people who can do those jobs and want to work that extra overtime, especially in a potential economic recession, I find it ridiculous that our members of Parliament who don't even show up to their debates get to tax that overtime, right? You're working hard, you should be able to keep your money. And I think that ties in a little bit to the housing question. To actually answer the question though, more specifically with the housing, I think we need to look at different types, different housing types. And what I mean by that is all these developers are obviously for-profit, building these big houses. A lot of people my age are looking for something small, something cheap, and there's not that right now in the market.
Thank you. Cindy,
Yeah.
your 1 minute begins now.
All right. On housing, Mark Carney's vision is very clear. It's to build what we successfully did in the past. We know this works. We'll use Canadian materials, be built in Canada using Canadian labor. We will use house plans designed for Canadian conditions. We will build 500,000 quality affordable houses per year, working with our municipalities and also with the province to make sure this happens.
Thank you. Randy?
Actually, I'm not sure who's going to be able to afford these homes because I've traveled the whole riding and parents are telling me that they're fearful for the fact that their kids may never own one. But I'll answer your question. Canadians, again, need to come first in this one. We need to provide incentives to be able to build and to be able to buy. That's a no-brainer. And we need to support the trades. We notice, I hang out with a lot of tradesmen here. And basically what I've heard is that there needs to be much more support for those trades. Again, I mentioned earlier at the school level where we basically promote the trades. There have to be incentives for companies to be able to take these kids on, because most of them get into the trades. They get into the trades, but they're having a great deal of difficulty finding the apprenticeships. And that's where we really have to open up things, and we need to be much clearer with that one. And if you're talking about building, yes, I do hear. Again, I'm not sure who's going to buy these houses, but we have to cut the red tape to make things much more fluid to get those homes built, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll open up the floor for debate. You may speak up at any time, and I will kind of moderate. I think we've been pretty good. Eileen, you have your hand up first. Go ahead.
Yeah, Randy mentioned affordability, and that's a very important part of housing, right? So the conservative and the liberal plan is that they're going to remove GST off the purchase of homes for homes up to $1 million, not billions, $1 million. Even $1 million, right? Like, who is that? Who is that? That's people looking for affordable housing? No, that's benefiting like people with higher income. What the NDP proposes is that the CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing, will provide low-interest homes, and we are the only ones proposing 20% of housing stock to be non-market housing stock. So that's things like not-for-profit housing, cooperative housing, Indigenous communities, housing for military personnel. We need to also look outside the box. Use of federal lands, the current federal lands, for building for rent-controlled housing. It's not. I'm just going to add, and I'll give you.
Real quick, finish up.
I'm just going to add that, rent-controlled housing, we used to do that, and in the 90s, both the provinces and Mulroney pulled, conservative again, pulled out of federal help with housing. We need to get back in.
Go ahead, Randy.
Very kind of you to offer no GST.
That's not me, that's the Liberals and the
Cons. But very kind. But who created the problem of the lack of affordability in the first place? Like, absolutely unacceptable everywhere that we have traveled in this riding. And it hurts me. I have kids as well. One of them got in before COVID, managed to buy a home, but will the other two ever own a home? Who created that problem in the first place?
I'm assuming you're going to say the Liberals.
And the Conservatives. And the Conservatives, right?
What's your answer to that, Sandy? No GST. Wow, that's awfully kind of you. You create the problem, and then you provide a small Band-Aid. Unacceptable.
I think, Randy, it's building the 500,000 homes per year of affordable housing like we did post-World War II, and you see them right across this country.
No person should ever, any child, should be told from it's a survival mode rather than giving kids the same thing that we had was success and to be able to thrive. Unacceptable.
Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, so I can get elected on April 28th, and I can live in my parents' basement for 2.5 years, and I still could not afford a home on the MP salary of the base MP salary of $200,000 per year. Yeah. So, and I would still, as a government employee, I would still have to live in my parents' basement, not spend any money, and then after 2.5 years, then I could maybe buy a house, maybe. Right? So we need to look at affordable options, like really affordable options. I'm not talking about, okay, instead of 500,000, we go down to 400,000, right? No. We have so many young people like myself who, I mean, he talked about immigration and the problems we're having with the trades here in the valley. Hello, with the housing crisis for people my age, unbelievable. Some of us just want something small to call our own, and we can't have that.
Randy, we're going to give it to Cindy, then you can finish up. Okay, Randy?
So I think it would be great to have somebody in caucus in the Liberal government to advocate for affordable housing being built here, because there are 500,000 homes being built across this country, and it's important that we get our fair share so Seth can get his house.
If there isn't a parent out here that's absolutely horrified
I have 4 kids.
and disgusted with what has happened with the Liberals and the NDP in this last election that has done this to our youth, something is definitely missing.
So,
We're going to go with you, and then we're going to finish with Seth. Real quick.
Hollyover likes to say that housing prices rose 60% under the Liberals. They also rose 60% when Harper was in government. This is a long-time problem, and part of a part of the solution is to create more non-market housing. Most of us, my age, who are lucky enough to have a house, we look at our house as an investment, right? But by creating things like cooperatives, not-for-profit housing, rent-controlled housing, it gives people a chance to get into the housing market.
Thank you.
I've learned so much because of it. I've learned so much about my community. And what they're basically telling me is that they are missing a voice. They're missing the opportunity to be able to say, listen, we didn't sign up for a coalition between the NDP and the Liberals. That was not our wish. Our wish is to have our Canada back. And so again, we need to make sure that that voice is not some egocentric, egotistical, selfish politician. It has to be the voice that comes from the people.
Thank you. I didn't.
Sorry.
I'm going to be the one that addresses the elephant in the room or not in the room.
Is this the time when we get to speak?
First of all,
Get to
you
cheer,
need
right?
respect for the democratic
It's the
process.
second
And
part.
showing up at events like this, where the elected officials and those running for office are held responsible to all the voters in the media, it's a pretty basic level of engagement with constituents. So let's move on from there, okay? So there is already, paid for by taxpayers, an official newsletter which come from the MP office. I propose that be changed from a propaganda sheet to the newsletter that it's supposed to be, talking about what's going on, so that constituents know about that. Now, I know that we need multiple forms of communication, and I have had people say to me, "Hey, what will you do in order to hear our voices?" To which I have said, "What would you like me to do?" Here are some of the ideas that we have heard. And it's interesting because it reflects different demographics, right? So I've heard a regular radio phone-in show, like once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months, but like a radio phone-in show. Town hall-style meetings in person across the riding. A constituency office with regular office hours and staff that are there, because as people have said, the MP is not always going to be in the riding, but staff who can but hear the concerns, and a digital presence has already been mentioned. And digital presence is so often used to send out information, but we can use technology for receiving information. And we need to be, it is very important that your MP is accessible, either in person, by email, or by phone, because communication is a two-way street. Like, I'm up here talking right now, but really the most important job would be listening to what the constituents have to say and the solutions they want.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are moving on to the second question of the Q&A, and we'll roll the dice to see who begins. Number 2, so we will begin with Cindy on this one. So, the topic is challenges and solutions. The question is, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing our community today, and what specific solutions do you propose to address it?
Thank you. This is not a question about what I think, but a question about what constituents think are the challenges that need solutions. Going door to door, I've heard some challenges that hit home that made me realize, if elected, I need to focus on working with our organizations, like visiting the farms. We were able to bring in the Agriculture Minister, Corey Loyce, to have a town hall. It's organizing events like that, giving people access in industries so they can have one-on-one dialogue. I've met with military members and veterans and heard what they need, being a military spouse. I've also, and 2 kids in the military. I have been to a door hearing unique things, like a man who was worried about how he would survive when his disability benefit ended when he turned 65. I've heard how $10 daycare has allowed people to return to the workforce and pursue their careers while raising a family. I've heard the difference dental care has made, and now you can smile with confidence. This question is about me listening and then working as hard as I can to represent and show up for our constituents. I call it a shoe and leather politics, and that's what I have been doing during this campaign, and what I will do if elected, represent what you need and find the solutions that people need.
Thank you. Randy?
Could you, you said greatest challenges, but I didn't...
I can read it again. What do you see as the greatest challenge facing our community today, and what specific solutions do you propose to address it?
Two demographics, or a demography that hits home for me in a big way, is both our youth and our elderly. And what I'm noticing about youth particularly is that they have lost hope. They have no idea what's waiting for them tomorrow. Again, I went back to the whole fact that they're not sure if they'll ever own a home. Like Stephanie, they have to stay at home for a very long time. And that is not what we signed up for. I would definitely see that we need to have youth involved in our decision making. We need to get them maybe create, and I've done this up in the Arctic, but we need to do it here. We need to get our youth involved. Create a youth advisory council where they can actually talk to us. And seeing Seth out here as a young man, that's the type of guy that we want to have his feedback saying, you know, Randy, this is what we need in our community. As a young man, I need to see this. So a youth advisory council. And the other thing is we need to have some tax reform. We have to fight for our elderly. They're just getting by. And the United Party is going to offer some tax reform that will certainly give them a much bigger tax exemption of from 69 is what we have right now, to 25 and 50,000 when you turn 65. Put more money in their pockets. They're just getting by. And these are two demographics that are critical. You want to know what kind of environment or what kind of community you have? Watch how you treat your youth and your elders. And right now, we're not doing a very good job with our elders.
Thank you, Randy. Eileen?
Well, when I've been talking with people as we meet them, it's overall anxiety. It's been really amazing to me that people are talking about this election as being scary, about being anxious about how are they going to manage how are they going to continue to manage in the face of Trump threats to sovereignty, to trade, etc. And then that ties right in always with affordability, right? So part of that is programs which the NDP brought in and the Liberals like to claim, like dental care, because it's never been on their platform, but dental care and pharmacare, which because we had enough seats, we were able to force the Liberals to bring that in. Bring in things like removing GST off home heating and cell and internet. There are so many ways that we can do to improve affordability. I've had other people say to me, climate change, we're not talking about climate change anymore. And they're worried that that's falling off and that the ensuing generations, or that we're not going to be able to breathe this summer, and ensuing generations are not going to be able to live a lifestyle that we have lived.
And we are, as NDP, are all about transitioning to greener alternative energies and financial support for lower income homeowners, etc. To also have transition personally. And I'm trying to rush right now because I want to get in a topic we haven't talked about, and it's human rights. And people are watching what is happening in the States, and they're watching as women's rights and the rights of LGBTQIA plus people are being threatened, and they want to know that we will be safe in Canada. And I want to assure people that I myself personally, and then the NDP party as a whole, we are all about human rights. A human is a human, and we are all equal. And when people...
Thank you.
Well, I see what Eileen mentioned affordability. I agree that affordability and income is a major issue facing the valley, and no one person can alone improve or fix that. But as a prospective member of Parliament, I'm interested in policies that improve productivity, basically improving the amount of income or value to the economy that's generated for each and every hour of work. And I believe the way that we improve productivity is taking away monopolies in different industries, such as in the dairy industry or in the telecommunications industry. And I also believe we need to make our tax system more friendly towards productivity by shifting taxes more so from income towards sales and consumption, so that our tax system is friendlier to long-term investments that will reap rewards across the country and in the valley, including in the valley.
Thank you. Seth?
Andrew? Housing is, one of the first things that me and my friends are talking about, whether we're engaging in political discussion or if it's just frankly, how's it going? Well, we're still living at home, right? So housing is still, I think, one of the biggest challenges, obviously, across the entire country, but also especially here in the valley. And there are, solutions for that. Looking at alternative options, right? Not just selling to the same developers every time. We make the same houses, still cost the same, right? But I want to go back again to the Petawawa-Ottawa corridor, Highway 17, and just the importance of that corridor, right? We need to be able to move people, to be able to move trade, economy. We need to invest in that corridor because, frankly, it's not good enough. And to get investment, we need to show that we have the infrastructure. We've got empty warehouse buildings. We've got all that. The next step is to really ensure that we can get people, goods, services up and down the Highway 17 as quick as possible, but also as safe as possible.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to our third question. The topic is arts, heritage, and community. We're here tonight at Festival Hall. Let's roll the dice. Number 3. So Randy, you're going to start this time, okay? We're here tonight at Festival Hall, the largest performing arts venue between North Bay and Ottawa. A space that's brought the community together for decades through music, theater, and cultural events. In many rural areas, arts and recreation programs are underfunded or overlooked entirely. How do you see arts, heritage, and community events playing a role in rural communities? And what specific steps would you take to support these sectors in communities like ours?
So as a professional recording artist and piper and ran the pipes and drums here in town for Branch 72, this is clearly dear to my heart. We just found out in Branch 72 that they're selling all the uniforms for the pipes and drums, which means that pipe band will never ever come back to this area. When you're talking about this area, and I have performed in this particular hall years ago, it is an absolutely incredible facility sound-wise. It's always a pleasure coming here and performing. And I recognize that it's not just important, it's essential. And again, I mentioned about the demographic. The youth are extremely important to me. And one of the things that I noticed in my life is that music and art is the most incredible, healthy outlet. And as a teacher, for example, I ran the Glee Club, and I had students perform during every assembly. And you see that the students that could not find their way in other places tend to find their way in the arts. It's a very unique niche of individuals. And it's imperative. We talk about humanity and human rights. Every human being is absolutely important. And so the arts community in this particular area is critical to everyone. But again, I put a specific and special focus on youth. It's an incredible, healthy outlet, and it must be funded. And if you want to take a look at what kind of community you have, look at how they support their arts and entertainment.
Thank you, Randy. Eileen.
Yeah, so it's arts, heritage, and community. So I'm going to start with community because community is absolutely key. It's what holds us together. So we've had years of the Conservatives trying to divide us, highlighting problems and using them to create division. We need to focus on solutions because the role of government is to make life better and safer for everyone. And we do that when we come together as a community and work towards the solution. Heritage, we like learning about our own and learning about each other's heritage is what brings us together. I've been lucky enough in my life to be able to do things, well, as a teacher at Eganville District Public